Good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express papers Chandigarh edition. The topics are mentioned over here as usual. I would just like to tell you that from today's newspaper, I'm going to discuss urban naxals briefly. Then the multilateral development bank reforms. You would already know that we are covering it since I've been sharing this, lot of links on the Telegram today. So this I've summarized. And the fuel cells, the green hydrogen. In fact, we have a short video of 15 minutes that also you may refer. This is a very, very important topic especially for the mains paper. Let's move on with the news. So first of all, we have, an issue concerning Hardeep Nijjar's killing. So USA's President Biden had raised this concern about the killing by Indian agents to the Prime Minister Modi. Right. Now, it is because of this issue that, the Canadians are upset with the Indians. Now, they're saying that even in US was aware of this and they had raised this issue prior with India. Moving on, Prime Minister in one of his political speech, he said Congress is bankrupt and urban naxals are running the show. Fine. The main point is urban naxals. Who are these urban naxals? Right. So I want to cover from GS3 internal security point of view. Now, please keep in mind that in internal security paper, we have questions on left-wing extremism. And left-wing extremism is conducted, normally associated with Naxals. We call them Naxalites also. Typically, a question only on Naxalism or left-wing extremism is asked as a whole. Like, what are the trends, facts about left-wing extremism, that there is a decline that is taking place, something to that effect. What are the causes, and what steps have been taken? So more or less, the question revolves around these issues. In the years preceding, in the recent times, now questions have been raised about urban naxals. In your books, hardly there is any reference of urban naxals, but there is emphasis on urban naxals. Even though no question has been asked, but we should be aware of what is urban naxals. So if you read more about the left-wing extremism, so left-wing extremism is associated with the tribal areas in the remote areas of the country, especially the tribal areas, which is also known as the Red Corridor. Now, the left-wing extremist, they have an ideological support from urban India. They have support from urban parts of the country, or we can call it as urban sympathizers. So what support do they provide? And this urban one, we can refer to them as urban naxals. So these people from the urban India, they are not really engaged in on-ground violence. But these may be actually intellectuals, maybe university professors or somebody like that, or activists. So they are basically intellectuals who have a soft corner or have sympathies with the left-wing extremist ideology. These people provide ideological framework for the left-wing extremism within the country. So ideological framework. They help form public opinions, which basically says that the government is against the tribal interests, right? And Naxalism is basically a response to that. So it is a fight against the injustice. So they help form a public opinion, especially in the urban parts of the country and maybe internationally also. So that is one issue. They also fight cases at the court level. They take up the issues faced by the tribals and help mobilize the tribal population. So they also do advocacy, and they also go to the courts at the Supreme Court, High Court. So that also is done. They also help generate fundings for the violence that takes place in the remote areas of the country, or left-wing extremism. Or we can say that urban naxals are basically the urban front of left-wing extremism. Lastly, this may also be the democratic, the political front, or the political organization which is associated with the leftist movement. So on one hand, they are fighting politically using the democratic institutions. On the other hand, they are using the means of violence. So this is basically the urban naxalisms. It's a very loosely defined. It's difficult to find definition also. I teach internal security. So yes, that's it. Next article, obviously all of this is political. The next article was about NK Singh, Lawrence Summers at Adda today. I didn't find the interview. I checked twice or thrice. Today's paper, I didn't find it. It's continued on page 2. Okay, page 2 I didn't see. Okay. But what I was interested is that NK Singh and Lawrence Summers were the co-conveners. They were the co-chairs of the G20 expert group on strengthening multilateral development banks. We're just interested with the strengthening multilateral development banks. What are these multilateral development banks? These are like the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, you name it, the New Development Bank or the BRICS Bank. So many banks are there. These are multilateral development banks. So a G20, in the G20, an expert group was constituted before this G20, which was to look into how the MDBs, multilateral development banks, can mobilize capital and bring in inclusive growth and fill in the objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs for 2015 to 2030. So they were to tell reforms till the 2030 period. So from 2023 to 2030. Now if you follow me on Telegram, you already must be having this document which I have shared with you. So a lot of links open now. Yes, so this is the document, which is the paper, which is telling us about the G20 expert group's recommendations. So these are basically recommendations. Now just focus on the index. I don't expect you to read 50 pages, nor am I going to read it actually. So there is a reference of triple mandate, triple financing, then triple funding mechanisms. Okay, so the first thing was with the MDB group, the triple agenda or the triple mandate, that is the title of this report, and triple financing. So what are these? So triple agenda or triple mandate is basically the multilateral development banks working on 3 goals: to eliminate extreme poverty, to bring in inclusive growth. Inclusive growth is also sustainable growth. And lastly, financing of global public goods. So financing of global public goods. Now this could be dealing with the issue of hunger. This could be dealing with the issue of climate finance. So number of things may be part of this. This is a very, very broad term. So triple agenda has been explained. Triple financing or trebling finance. TREBLEB. So this is concerning increasing the capital with the multilateral development banks by 3 times. So because a lot of capital will be required to bring in or to deal with the triple agenda: extreme poverty, inclusive growth, and global public good. So we need thrice the amount of capital. Now what can be done? So one of the recommendation is, we all know that public sector, government, etc. contributes to these banks, but we need to tap in more capital. We need to pull in more resources. So we need to have capital from the private sector. As of now, of every dollar that is raised by the multilateral development bank, only 0.6 is coming from the private sector. We need to have more funding, more participation of the private sector in this regard. So that is one of the things. Then obviously we need to increase the corpus of funding. So this panel had recommended $100 billion of equity to come in. So the very title of this thing is 100 billion of new equity for multilateral development bank. So more capital coming in. Equity means whosoever is contributing, they will have a share. So that money need not be paid back right away like loans. So 100 billion equity plus, so that is first point. Second point can be more participation of the private sector. Next, there are so many multilateral development banks, right? So many multilateral development banks. It may be happening that, you know, their area of functioning may be overlapping. So therefore, there is duplication of effort. So we should focus on coordination amongst the multilateral development banks so that they work in unison, they work in synergy, and this will help us better deal with the issue of triple agenda or mandate. Then one more thing. See, now we were talking about more funding to be given to the multilateral development banks. So that was the thing, right? First point, 100 billion equity, then share of the private sector. But there is something more, something very special to the inherent to the banking sector. This is bringing in a new capital adequacy framework. You would notice that I have deleted this point, leverage. So leverage is actually part of the capital adequacy framework. So I was just now reading the World Bank's document on the MDB leverage. So I was reading about it. It is very, very detailed. But broadly, we can say capital adequacy means how much capital the bank needs to keep with itself, right? The bank borrows money and then it lends. So how much minimum capital the bank should keep with itself so that it is able to pay back the investors? That is capital adequacy. So it is believed that banks are keeping more and more of this capital, right? They are not leveraging the capital enough to lend more to the people who are in need. So we need to rationalize this. The capital adequacy framework should provide for a lesser amount of risk capital available with the banks. So if lesser amount of risk capital is there, more capital is freed to be lent to the needy sections of the world. So that is the capital adequacy framework. This article over here, it says it will help optimize the balance sheet of the multilateral banks. So it provides for G20 capital adequacy framework so that MDB can optimize the balance sheet and create headroom to lend an additional $80 billion annually. So this is a more sophisticated way of saying it. Lastly, there should be an independent oversight mechanism. So there are multiple banks, so there should be an oversight mechanism independently working, which can from time to time state what reformative measures should be there, what guidelines should be there according to which the bank should work. They should provide for how synergy or coordination can be there. So all that. So perpetual institution should be there. Like for example, N.K. Singh Lawrence, this committee expert group is there. It is an ad hoc committee. It was required, so it was created. Now it is not there. But something permanent should be there, which looks into at a global level, which looks at the functioning of the MDBs continuously. Continuous monitoring is there. Okay, this is very important, and it did take me a lot of time. You can see a lot of research has been done to this. Now you see, this can be asked, right? And these points are more than enough to write. You really don't have to go through the report. It's just that some important pointers are there from the index, which may be referred. Right. Again, I'm not able to find it. Yeah, this is the second one. Some important things are there, some important references are there, but you don't need to read 51 pages, because you could simply elaborate this. And what I have told you, that is more than enough. You can easily write 250 words on it. Okay, so just scrolling now. India rapidly becoming capital of diabetic blindness. So because of diabetes, there is blindness. And the word for this is diabetic retinopathy. Right, so diabetic retinopathy. Now, obviously, that article is basically same thing is being repeated through and through. Now, what is the government doing with reference to people getting affected by diabetes? I also think that this may be asked in the GS3 paper as well. Science and Tech, Health, etc. comes in GS3. So we should be prepared, and if we can write an answer on this, we will automatically be prepared for prelims also, because we know the schemes and initiatives of the government, right? So pre-preparation is also done. So basically, there is nothing very special about this. Diabetic patients, see, diabetes is being treated as a non-communicable disease. So what remedies are there for non-communicable diseases are, and diabetes are basically the same thing. So yes, one of this is insulin. Through initiatives, insulin shall be provided through generic medicines. So that is there for anything, right? Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana. Here, these are places, Jan Aushadhi, where you get the medicines, generic medicines. Free Drug Service Initiative of National Health Mission. There are two components of National Health Mission, rural and urban. Okay. Ayushman Bharat, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. Inpatient care is provided. So, yes. Next. Cyber criminals are finding new and new means of, cheating. Now, we have to look from mains point of view, cyber GS3. Okay. So this thing is increasing time to time. We are getting these ads also. Be aware, satark rahiye, and all those things. So what is the government doing? What is the risk? Right, this is its issue, and now it is coming up. So what is the vulnerability of the population, and what remedial measures are being taken by the government? Now, the government, if you go by the PIB, they will simply say that, and as per the 7th schedule, policing is a state subject. But nevertheless, we have taken some initiatives. So it's actually more of the state initiatives that we need to look into. So PIB, I didn't get much, but from here I got it. There is a national helpline, this number. Right, I have already shared the link with you. So national helpline, then there is the Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center. So same initiatives are there. Citizen Financial Cyber Fraud Reporting and Management System. So just the headlines, I think that is sufficient. Six Muktsar cops booked in advocates custodial torture. This is coming because part of your GS2. This is governance, not constitution, governance. Now, custodial torture is when somebody is there in the police custody, so a person is tortured. Sometimes it also leads to death. So this can be taken up as part of torture. It can be taken as part of prison reforms. It can be taken as part of the police reforms also. Right. In fact, I actually prepared this the thorough answer on this. I have in the written form. I have it. But these are the themes. If UPSC asks, it will be over here. Police reforms, and police reforms, they may not ask you directly about police reforms, but it may say what was stated in the Prakash Singh committee report, and then it will have a tail question. Okay. We have something about the National Investigative Agency. It gets MHA nod, Ministry of Home Affairs nod for 7 additional posts. So expansion of NIA is taking place. Now, what is the NIA? NIA is National Investigative Agency. It is a statutory body created in 2008 via an act of the Parliament. Why 2008? Because, in the wake of the Mumbai terror attacks, so it was felt that for terror-related activities, there should be a specialized investigative agency. Okay, so this is there. Now, some important parts. The Home Minister has said that all states will have NIA offices by 2024 as a strategy to counter terrorism. Next, the state police and there should be coordination to undertake a whole ecosystem approach. This is something that you can write in your answer writing. Whole ecosystem approach to dismantle terror networks that aim at harming India. So whole network terrorism ecosystem approach would be central intelligence agencies, investigative agency, NIA, police. So that is whole ecosystem approach. Money lenders thrash Dalit women in Bihar over unpaid interest. Fine. It's not fine, but okay. So there are two things. One is the issue of caste violence. Other is money lenders. Now, this is why we are focusing on financial inclusion, bringing people under the ambit of formal financial setup. C-295 aircraft, transport aircraft will come. It is developed by the Airbus company and it is being manufactured in Spain, Seville, Spain. It is a transport aircraft and it aims to be replacing the aging Avro 748 aircraft fleet. Editorial page now. So nothing much to be explained over here, right? Nothing much. We'll just briefly go through these articles. So the first one is healing Manipur. Manipur violence took place between the Meitei group and the Kuki communities. Meitei lives in the plain areas of Manipur, while Kuki are living on the hill areas. There is another community known as the Nagas, and other communities are also there, like Zomi was there in the news. Okay. So this Manipur violence was between Meiteis who live in the plains and the Kukis who live in the hill areas. Now, within the Meitei dominated areas and some Kuki dominated areas, violence took place. So there are remains of the dead bodies are there which have not been claimed. So the last rites of at least 96 of the deceased, more than half the official death count have not taken place because these bodies are not claimed. So now this has led to this, because of this issue, more violence has actually taken place. Fine, so this issue. So state government must accept SC panel's advice on unclaimed bodies, and center must not accede to proposal. So that is there. Okay. Now, so this thing is there. Okay. So Kukis have actually started the violence. Now, the chief minister of Manipur, Biren Singh, who happens to be from the Meitei community, they are the majority community. So he's saying that the bodies that are there, right, the bodies that are unclaimed, are those of the outsiders. There is a lot of infiltration that is taking place. So outsiders, foreigners are coming over here and doing unethical activities, drug trafficking, etc. So their dead bodies are remaining. We should actually focus on closing the borders. That is what the Manipur CM is saying. So that is what this article says. Center must not accede to the proposal to close borders. This proposal is given by the Manipur Chief Minister. Okay, next is the article by the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. This is about the moment of the woman the schemes taken by the Modi government during the Modi times. And I think you don't have to go beyond this. So one is the Women Reservation Bill, which is Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. So that is one thing. Then Article 370. So abrogation of Article 370 also restored some of the fundamental rights. So it brought in gender equity, some of them which was not there. So that has come to the state, to the union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. Okay. Triple talaq. Then we have of course, the Women Reservation Bill. Then the Modi government, Prime Minister Modi has been emphasizing upon women-led development as a way towards empowering women. There was this expression is very powerful. In fact, there was a essay on the very same topic which said, if the development is not engendered, then the development is endangered. Here, engendered meant, because I'm very sure about this, because the human this phrase is taken from the Human Development HDR issued by the United Nations Development Program. So there it is there, and it basically says if women are not part of the developmental activities, at the core of it, then the development itself would be endangered. So women-led development is actually going by the expression, if the development is not engendered, if women is not at the core of the development, then the development itself would be endangered. So women-led development. So not women empowerment, empowering women, the government through various schemes, etc., but women becoming the very core agents of empowering themselves, of developing the country. Okay, so women-led development. Then we have the Ujjwala Yojana, the LPG gas connections to be provided. Women, cooking otherwise takes place with biomass, with the twigs of wood, etc. So a lot of pollution takes place. So rather than that, LPG, so cleaner form of energy for cooking. Swachhta Abhiyan, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Mudra Yojana, loans to be given for microfinance loans to women. Then increase Maternity Benefit Act, which increased the maternity leave. Okay. Then having reservation in armed forces, be it Central Armed Police Force as well as the National Defense Academy. Now, women fighters now stand to serve as Amrit Rakshaks. The CAPF soldiers are known as Amrit Rakshaks. So women are also part of Amrit Rakshaks. So these are some of the initiatives that the Modi government has taken. Now coming to this, WHO said it, not who, WHO, World Health Organization said it. There is an explainer also on this. So this WHO report flags deficits in blood pressure care. It raises, and blood pressure happens because of hypertension. Now again, this is something we really don't expect, but if question is asked, we should be prepared. Okay. So what it is saying, flags concern about hypertension care. It says more than 180 million people in the country are living with the condition of blood pressure issue. So, and of this, only 37% are aware of it. People have the problem, but only 37% are aware of it. 63% don't even know about it. Now imagine you have an underlying condition, you are not aware of it, what will happen? This condition may go bad, hypertension leading to blood pressure leading to cardiovascular diseases, strokes. It may also affect your kidneys as well as eyes. It may also lead to diabetes. Right? So they are at greater risk of developing non-communicable diseases. And this also means more expenditure on healthcare for the households, maybe bringing them onto the path of poverty all over again, as well as government's burden on healthcare also increases. So if you address the problem at the very start, right, at the very initial phase, obviously these issues can be prevented. So not curative, but preventive care is also part of it. Okay, now of the 37 people who knew, only 15% are able to manage it. So what are the facts available? 180 million people affected. Of this, 37% only aware of it, and of this total, 15% are aware of it, are able to manage their BP. Okay, next. Then there are also patients who do not initiate uh, treatment or do not follow doctor's prescription. They go by their own. We go to the doctor. Doctor tells us something, but we do not abide by it. So this is not good. This may have further complications. Okay. And there is also awareness deficit. Now, what is the government doing about it? So one, we have the National Program for Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, right? So there is this initiative which says that people above the age of 30 years, when they go to the hospital for anything, for treatment, etc., it should be mandatory to check their BP. So their BP should be checked. So with this itself, people will get aware that yes, this person has a problem. So screening for hypertension, blood pressure should take place at the age of 30 itself from there on. And when they go to the hospital, just check it with the BP machine. It's simple. Okay. So that's the basic point over here. Now more needs to be done also, because obviously there is a shortcoming. We need more healthcare providers at the rural level. At the urban areas, it is still better, but in the rural areas, we need to focus more. In fact, the issue of hypertension, blood pressure is increasing to small towns and rural areas, rural parts of the country. Now, here the people are not trained to check the BP as well as provide medication for BP. So the third of healthcare providers in rural Bihar only could provide quality hypertension care. So very few can do it. So experts said, right, so that is a problem. So experts suggest that we need to create awareness. At the same time, we need to focus on community healthcare workers so that they are trained in measuring the blood pressure, creating awareness, and then once the problem is identified, take them to the doctors for the right medication. Right, so let me just sum it up again. 180 million affected, 37% know about it. The problem is spreading to small towns and rural areas also. Earlier it was only for the metros, but now smaller towns, rural areas also taking place. Okay. Next, A to Z of GDP. I was hoping to get more on this. No, we don't get it. The heading is misleading. It simply says that we need to focus, we need to have a new base year. Right, so we compare the GDP with the certain base year. So at the moment, the present base year is 2011, 2012. So ideally, in an ideal situation, the next base year should have been 2016, 2017. And by now, we should have had another base year, 2021, 22. Why do we need the new base years? It's because a lot of changes has taken place over the years. New economic activities have emerged. So to give more representation to them, the base years have to be revised. So this will give us more accurate information about the economic activities within the country. Next is ethical eating. It's just the expression that was there. It seemed interesting. Okay. So there is this hotel in London. It's a restaurant in London based on zero waste restaurant. So it is offering non-vegetarian food comprising of invasive species, right? Invasive species like gray squirrels, Japanese knotweed, signal crayfish. So invasive species are being fed, obviously with their knowledge, to the customers. Why? because the person who's running the restaurant, he's saying that, see, invasive species, and this is right, invasive species, when they enter into, let's say these are obviously alien to UK, so when they enter, they may replace or negatively affect the indigenous population of that, the of the species. So that is not good. So we are identifying those species, catching them and eating them. So therefore, ethical eating. So that is one side of things. Nothing beyond this we have on ethical eating from this article. Second, the second part of this article is focusing that humans, their appetite, if they eat, they can eat so much, then they can actually eliminate the population of a species altogether. And some of the species have been mentioned. The ancient woolly mammoth, something like an ancient elephant. It is believed that humans used to feed on it, and as a result, they got extinct. Woolly mammoth. You must have seen on some cartoons of Ice Age or etc. So this species has been reflected. Then there was this plant, pungent herb, silphium, which were eaten by the ancient Romans. So they liked it so much that on everything they used to put it, and as a result, this is just vanished. Right? There is nothing of this sort available now. Then even the commonest birds like passenger pigeons, which were seen in North America, so people started eating it. They made a dish known as pigeon pot pies, and because of this, it became extinct by 1914. So eating, maybe ethical eating, we can add to this, that how much of what we eat. So that should also be kept in mind, because it may lead to extinction of the species. We should manage our load accordingly. Maybe we can also talk about the Japanese eating whales or something to that extent. With ethical eating, we can also talk about the vegan movement, vegetarian, non-vegetarian food. So a lot of dimensions are also there. By the way, ethical eating will come under GS4 applied ethics. The international section now. Okay. Ethnic, the war that took place between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So Azerbaijan took control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. This Nagorno-Karabakh region, internationally, it was still recognized as part of Azerbaijan. But this was independently being governed as the Republic of Artsakh. Okay. Now, with this war that happened last week, the entire region has gone completely under the control of Azerbaijan government. Okay, so that has happened. Now, Armenian population is fleeing, that is going out of that region, because it is feared that the new government will now engage in ethnic cleansing, that is killing of the Armenian population. So they are fleeing that area. US exploring hotline with China to tackle crisis in space. Okay. So, yeah. So you see, US has some space programs, Chinese have some space programs. It may so happen that they may be working on a common geography, let's say the Pacific region. So if there is a crisis, then the US people or the Chinese people need to know who should they call and mitigate the risk. So US and China will have a hotline. So they're exploring the possibility of an hotline. So that is one news that is covered over here. Now, another part to this could be crisis in space. Another part to this could be weaponization of space. Right? So weaponization of space. So maybe the US is doing it, Chinese are doing it, Soviets are doing it. So there may be, in the future, there may be a space war. So maybe to mitigate that tension, more transparency should be there. So a hotline to that effect. Now, when we talk about the space wars, right? So one is weaponization, that using of weapons to destroy a space satellite or something like that. So that is there. Another thing could be, that's been mentioned over here, that the space aspect is now playing a very important role in conventional warfare. So, and US is concerned with this. So one is China's military ambitions in Indo-Pacific has unnerved its neighbor, and the war in Ukraine. So war in Ukraine showed that Ukraine people got support of the Western satellite system. They got connectivity through them, and they got jammers, which affected the Russian offensive. So that also plays an important role. So both countries, the entire world actually, is looking at space in terms of war. Okay. So that is the basic thing. Now, when we talk about weaponization program of space, what is India having? So India has Mission Shakti, which is a space, which was a program actually by which they fired a missile, the Indians, and shot down a dummy satellite in space. So India also has that capability of firing a satellite, destroying a satellite from the Earth. Next, one last one. US is exploring US Space Force is looking at the possibility of having a satellite branch in Japan, having a place in Japan from where they can have greater on-ground presence. Nepal, China signed 12 agreements during Prachanda's visit to Beijing. Okay. We're really not interested what all happened. We are actually interested in what all happened, but the basic thing is, see, this is India. This is about geopolitics, Nepal, and China on top of it. So we see Nepal as a buffer state. India sees Nepal as a buffer state between China. And because of the geographical proximity, because the Himalayas are there, so this is the plain areas. So a population is more or less, it's free to move and everything. So we are more closely linked with Nepal. Now, and there is this barrier. But these days, if it happens that China and Nepal go closer and India's relations with Nepal is affected, this affects our internal, it affects our national security, especially from external aggression from China. So we are not comfortable with that. We want Nepal to be dependent on India and not so much on China. Geographical barriers are there, but these geographical barriers are being mitigated by Chinese engineering. So these initiatives are not so important. The main thing is we see the close ties between China and Nepal, which is of concern to Indian policy makers. Philippines removes floating China barrier at disputed shoal. So yesterday we covered this. Now coming to the economy section. Next is economy section, dollar rate, oil rate. So this you should keep an eye. Okay. Government softens stance on the laptop and PC imports. Okay. So what was the previous stance? If it says softens stance, what was the previous stance? So previously, some a month back actually, the government said that if anything has to be imported, like laptop or personal computers, then these companies need to have a license. The companies like HP, Dell, etc. Most of the laptops are actually all of the laptops are actually imported, especially from China. So if anybody is importing anything into India, like laptops or PCs, then these companies need a license, and they can only import up to a certain extent. So there was a quota system that was proposed, that only a certain amount can be imported, that from trusted sources. Okay, so this was there. This obviously affected the companies that operate. They said that this is not possible, it is very difficult. So there was a strong pushback from the industries. But it definitely, from the Indian side, the government side, it definitely shook these companies. And the idea is that these companies should register within India and manufacture within India for domestic consumption. So that was the basic idea. Okay. So now what is the new approach, or what is the softened stance? So the softened stance is that the companies that are importing, they have to register within the country. They have to register. They have to inform how much of the laptops they have imported, how much production is being done. So they have to inform about domestic production as well as the laptops they have imported. That's all, nothing more than this. Right, so import has to be done from trusted sources. This trusted sources has not been defined, but you look at the inverted commas, it most likely reducing reliance on Chinese. Some of the Chinese companies don't use those things which we are concerned with, or which has close ties with the Communist Party. Fine, okay. What we expect is in future, from quota system, which was a quota that so much of it can be imported, bringing in a restriction. Now we will move towards a credit system wherein the company shall be allowed imports based on how much of domestic production is being done within the country. So obviously the government wants more domestic production, reducing reliance on imports. So if more domestic production, then permission to imports would be given. So eventual idea is that we should minimize or bring imports to zero. So there should be a credit system. So how much domestic production is there, on that basis, more credits to import your laptop or PC, personal computer. I don't know who uses personal computers now. Okay. So that's it. That is the Softens stance. Now there are these companies like Apple. Apple has no plans of having local manufacturing as such, especially for the PCs. So there is no set date as such. They do considering the China plus one strategy. So they may say that, of the overall imports, they may negotiate with the government. They may say that we cannot do with the laptops, but overall electronics imports, or that should be made part of our credit arrangement. They have the iPhone and so many other things, watches, etc. So, okay. Now, if you look at the scheme, this is at a larger picture, which is about reducing the imports of electronic goods. Electronic goods we are obviously importing. It's now emerging as something like a fossil fuel, which we import in dollar terms. So it affects the forex exchange. It is leading to job loss because jobs are not coming within the country. Money is actually going out of the country. Plus, this money is in terms of dollar. It affects the foreign currency as well. So this is not good. We have to have domestic electronics manufacturing. Now we can look at it as to what schemes and initiatives the government is doing. We should have facts about electronics imports. So those things are very much required given the government's attention on domestic manufacturing and reducing imports. Very interesting. Indian Oil, right, the oil company. So they must be tasked, these are PSUs, the government may have tasked that you need to do research on alternative fuels, alternative sources of running the vehicles. So they have commenced trial on green hydrogen powered fuel cells. Green hydrogen powered fuel cell buses in Delhi NCR. So what is this? Well, first fuel cell, then what is green hydrogen and green powered everything? So you see water, H2O, right? So H2O is, the idea is to split, first of all, split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Right, so split them into two parts. So we get hydrogen and oxygen. These are then combustion takes place. Which combustion? Cold combustion takes place. And when we talk about fuel cell, it is cold combustion. So one is the hot combustion, like your petrol, you burn the petrol, diesel, etc. That is hot combustion, which can be done with hydrogen also. So, but here we are talking about cold combustion. So it's basically cell in which this thing takes place. And as a byproduct, we get water from the tailpipe. So cold combustion takes place in the fuel cells. Fine. Now, if the electrolysis, obviously, electrolysis means electricity, energy is being used. So if this electricity is coming from green sources, like solar power, wind power, etc., then this is green hydrogen. It is 100% sustainable. In fact, it is a lot more cleaner as compared to lithium ion batteries, because even for lithium ion mining and all those things are there. So this is a much better approach. Plus, you are able to store energy, right? You get solar energy, you split it into hydrogen, oxygen, you store energy in the form of batteries, and then you consume it when you want to do it. Okay, now some facts about this fuel cell from the trial that we got it. So the bus can be fit in with 30 kgs of hydrogen at 350 bar. Imagine the pressure, 350 bar pressure. And this will provide a range of 350 kilometers. 350 kilometers. And the conventional buses run 3 kilometers per liter. This can work at 12 kilometers per kg. So more range we are getting as compared to the weight of the fuel. So that is there. Plus, it can be refilled within 10 to 12 minutes. So like CNG, it can be filled up within 10 to 12 minutes for 30 kgs of hydrogen. So fuel cells are also seen as an alternative to electric, the lithium ion kind of batteries. So that also is there. Even these are EVs actually, but these are EVs powered by fuel cells. Lastly, electrical efficiency of the fuel cell is 55 to 60% higher compared to IC engines, which is at 25%. Moody, not very important. Moody is the credit rating agency. So they have raised concerns about Aadhaar. There are basically two concerns. One is about the reliability. The basic concern is reliability of biometric technologies, right? They're saying that for labor which has a sweaty hands, so maybe when they are putting it, this is not getting registered, and because they are not being authenticated. So there is a concern with this, which the government has refuted. So that is one. And because of this, there is denial of service. So because of this, because Aadhaar is linked to all the subsidies and etc., which is very much important, especially for the more vulnerable sections. So their welfare is getting compromised. But this problem did take place. Though the government denies it, but this problem did take place with reference to biometrics. And in case of this, the burden of establishing authorization is with the beneficiary. Right, so this is a problem. There was no alternative means. So many people back then, like for example, rations, etc., they were not able to get it. So this actually happened, but yes. Okay, so this is one issue. Then other issue is of CAG. So CAG had flagged issues of deficient data management practices. So reliability of biometrics, burden of establishing authorization, and deficient data management. So 3 points we get.